President, council members, and participants, we are now live.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We are reconvening today's public hearing. This morning, we heard the Managing Director's Office and the Office of Children and Families. This afternoon, we will hear testimony from the Office of Planning and Development. Mr. McDermott, who do we have to testify?
Our next witness is the Deputy Mayor and Director of Planning and Development, Ann Fadulin.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. Good.
Great.
Good afternoon, President Clark and members of City Council. I am Ann Fadulin, Deputy Mayor and Director of the Department of Planning and Development. Joining me today from the department are Catherine Califano, First Deputy, Melissa Long, Director of the Division of Housing and Community Development, Eleanor Sharp, Deputy Director for the Division of Planning and Zoning, John Monlack, the Deputy Director for Development Services, and from the Philadelphia Housing Development Corporation, PHDC, Dave Thomas, CEO and President, and Angel Rodriguez, Senior VP of Land Management. Additional staff are here who support our various boards and commissions. I'm pleased to provide testimony on the Department of Planning and Development's Fiscal Year 2023 operating budget. As you're aware, the mission of the Department of Planning and Development is to align the city's agencies whose mission relate to the built environment. We work in collaboration with communities to promote, plan, preserve, and develop successful neighborhoods for everyone. DPD includes the divisions of Executive Administration, Housing Community Development, Planning and Zoning, and Development Services. I would like to acknowledge the partnership between City Council, the administration, and the Department of Planning and Development, which has resulted in an unprecedented local investment in affordable housing. The Neighborhood Preservation Initiative will bring $400 million of investment over 4 years. To date, over $40 million of the first $100 million tranche has been either committed or expended. In addition, due to the charter change introduced by City Council and approved by the voters of the city, a required 0.5% of each year's general fund budget must be appropriated to the Housing Trust Fund. This year, that will result in over $27 million in dedicated local funding for housing. During fiscal year 21-22, the department successfully deployed nearly $260 million in federal stimulus funds to help over 40,000 households remain in their homes. We also successfully launched our eviction diversion program, which has been recognized as a national model and has significantly reduced the number of households losing their homes due to eviction. As of January 2022, there have been over 2,500 cases where landlords and tenants have participated in the program. In over 90% of those cases, the parties either reached an agreement or continued to negotiate. The vital component in the success of this program is the ability to provide rent assistance payments. We recently relaunched Philly First Home and turned the key to assist lower income households achieve home ownership. Philly First Home provides up to $10,000 in down payment and closing cost assistance, and Turn the Key provides up to $75,000 purchase price buy down to provide home ownership opportunities to households earning as low as 60% of the area median income. Our Planning and Zoning and Development Services divisions, which ensure the equitable delivery of development projects, helping to boost our economy and supporting economic growth, also had a very busy year. We processed a record number of ZBA and CDR cases, performed over 1,900 historical reviews, and fielded numerous calls for assistance from both for and nonprofit developers and businesses. None of this work and these achievements would have been possible without the dedication and nimbleness of the staff to quickly and productively move to fully remote work and then shift to hybrid work. The department has been successful in carrying out its mission during the devastation of the pandemic due to our partnership with this body, the support of the administration, and the commitment from staff to providing exemplary public service. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your work and all your organizations and all the people that work for you. I know that there have been some trying times over the last several years dealing with unforeseen issues, and you all handle it capably. I want to say that my understanding is that we actually got national acclaim, one of the programs, at least one. that was put in place in terms of getting money out to people in most need. And I want to thank you all for that. I got to ask this question first, because if not, I won't be able to go on the Diamond Street or the 31st and Master, those NAC offices, if you know what I mean. So this whole issue about vendor payments, we're figuring this out to decrease the time frame, the city issuing vendor payments. I consistently get complaints that don't punish these folks from NACs, Neighborhood Action Councils, or NSAs, those organizations that are essentially an extension of the city in providing services about getting paid. And these folks are, operating on a relatively low budget, first and foremost. And the fact that they don't get paid, and pretty much all of them are paying rent, has been somewhat troubling. Can we figure that out? I mean, I've had.
Yeah, I know that that's something that we're working on. Unfortunately, Paul Cesario, our director of finance, wasn't able to join us today, but I do believe we have Melissa Long with us, who might be able to provide information as to what we're doing to address that issue.
Yes, I'm a very good question, and I met with Paul, and not that it's an excuse. I know there have been some staffing. But they are getting staffed back up, and we are between Al Haj and me working with Paul. We'll make sure that that these receive high priority, because I totally agree with you. They're on a small budget, and they need special attention.
All right, so thank you for that response.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, and that's not your role, but out of
Oh no, but you know me, I can pest like the best of them. So.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I did reach out to Melissa and her team and Paul. I want to say last week, could have been the week before, and they jumped on this. And it's my understanding that there's some payments coming out. If they didn't come out on Friday, they're coming out this week.
Yeah, I checked with Al Haj for Brewery Town. I believe they received 2 on Friday. So. We will do better.
There's a systemic issue, because it's not,
Mm-hmm.
This has been a problem for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And
we understand. And I think, it's not just payment, it's also some contracting issues.
Exactly.
So those are things that are getting priority attention, because you're exactly right. These are small entities. They don't have the ability to carry these costs, rent or payroll or any of that. And so it's a high priority for us to get this straightened out.
So I'm going to ask you to give us a timeline and a specific level of action being taken. Because, all due respect, and I like you guys, right? The answer about it, we're going to do better.
No, we understand, and that's fine. Yeah. Right. I think
in writing what you plan on doing too.
Yes, when Paul Cesario is back in the office next week, we will get you that. We will get you a time frame and something that outlines a specific tasks that are being undertaken to fix this problem.
In addition to which, staying on NACs, NSAs, or whatever organization we give these contracts to, those organizations being the front line for the city of Philadelphia in service delivery and information flow. Over the years, and this goes before you, so this is not necessarily on your dime, we have systemically reduced the number of these organizations in the city of Philadelphia. I can recall when all of the affected neighborhoods had NACs, I'm just going to call them NACs. And it was always based on the budget, federal government, the declining revenues from the feds, and it was a legitimate issue. You just referenced in your testimony a significant amount of money now being dedicated to the city of Philadelphia, i.e. the $400 million, i.e. the legislation that was passed for the investment in the Housing Trust Fund. Has there been any thought about expanding the organizations? Because there are like areas in the city where they meet the criteria from an income perspective, but it's been eliminated a long time ago. Have you all given any thought about it, staffing back up in these neighborhood organizations? And like I say, it's money well spent given what we're asking these folks to do. And we're always asking them to do LAHI. We're asking the whole community meetings, all of the things that we don't do. Well, we do community meetings, but a lot of the things that we don't do on a consistent basis, they do it. So if you haven't, can you give some real thought to that? There's too many donut holes in the city where there's not an organization that contracts with us that provides services.
Yeah, so I know that Melissa and her team have been looking at how we can, it's not exactly next, but how we can increase the capacity and the and funding that we give to our housing counseling agencies. And frankly, we do have some groups that are NACs and housing counseling agencies and other things. But I believe we could figure out if we've got gaps or those things. Just to your point, for the first time and for a very long time, we finally have some actual resources. And so I think we could look at, are there areas that aren't getting the service level that they need? And is there an opportunity to expand either services from existing entities, or if we want to fund some additional groups to perform those services? And I know, Melissa, if you have anything to add in that.
Sure. I would say the timing of this is perfect. Al-Haj and I are meeting this week. We issue a NAC RFP every couple years, and we're issuing one in the upcoming months. So this is the perfect opportunity to increase the number.
Yeah, yesterday, not to keep belaboring the point, but this is important. Yesterday, we spent a lot of time talking to OPA, and one of the most significant questions that was asked is how are we going to get this information out about these ridiculously high assessments, right? And, the first answer from the government is always, well, go online, blah, 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 and, too frequently in a lot of neighborhoods and for a lot of people, that's just not an option. But these organizations, they're the ones. People know them. Go by, they know everybody. They know the conditions of those neighborhoods. So there's a lot of work to do, and we keep asking to do more, but not providing more resources. And then I have one last question on this round. I'll turn it to my colleague. There's somebody trying to get in. We reference, you have and I have, the number of dollars. And when we did MPI, and I guess actually when we did, to a degree, the dedicated funding from the trust fund, this was just codifying something that had kind of been committed by the city earlier. The thought was that we were going to be able to significantly increase the production of affordable housing. When we would have those gaps, we would go to PHFA, you get a set number of tax credits. There was a city commitment, maybe you got some fair money, but at the end of the day, it was always a gap. Well, this money that's now going to be available at the tune of $100 a year, and I know just a portion of that will go towards production. Is this money giving us a sense that we're going to be able to have more opportunities, not only for 9% credits, but 4% credits?
Yes. We already issued a preservation and a 4% RFP. And again, Melissa, if I get these figures wrong, please jump in. But I think between 4% and preservation, we committed over $30 million. And now we have our 9% RFP on the street, and we've actually increased our subsidy amount. We typically allow for a subsidy up to $2 million, and this time we went up to $3 million. And then I will say our projects that have been awarded tax credits but have not been to closing, I think we're all aware what's happening with construction costs. And almost every one of those projects is now coming back to us saying that they have a gap. And so due to these MPI dollars, we're able to ensure that those projects that got tax credits are able to continue to move through to get to closing. So there's all that going on. And then in addition, we did all announce last week the Turn the Key program, which is allowing us to provide up to $75,000 to buy down purchase price. And our land management team is releasing RFPs at a furious rate, and probably in the next, let's say, 60 days or so, we'll have a close to 25 plus RFPs on the street, offering our land up at a below market price to development teams that can produce housing, home ownership housing at an affordable level. So I think there's things being done on the rental side, and I think there's also things being done on the home ownership side to both increase production, but also to ensure that the projects that we already have in the pipeline are able to get to the finish line and get underway.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And your, I don't know what we're calling it, the dashboard or the whatever, some new fancy term that you all are using. Can you?
We've been doing dashboards for a while.
Well, some people that work in the office have been. I don't know if I've been doing it. Can you just give us a before and after so we can get a sense of, how this has been enhanced by virtue of the dedicated dollars that are now coming in?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and we can project that out for you, and we'll get you some more detail. But just to give a quick example, I think in the prior years, 4% and preservation RFP we put out, we maybe put $20 million on the street right now. So we increased that by a whole 50% by putting $30 million out. I think based on what we get in response to the 9% RFP, again, I think you're going to see that jump in what we put on the street last year versus what we plan to put on the street this year. And then again, so many of our projects wouldn't be able to get to the finish line without these additional dollars, given what's happening with construction costs. And then I'll just say at the Land Bank Board meeting this morning, we approved another disposition of 65 properties. So we're continuing to churn that way as well.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, and thank you for your work. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you so very much, Mr. President. I was in the amen corner, nodding my head while you were going through your line of questioning, and want to say a special shout out and a thank you to you. Two important words that I don't think we say often enough when we're in this work trying to get it done. But I also want to say a special thank you to a few other people on your team who I think deserve to be recognized, and that's Eleanor Sharp, our director of the Planning Commission, Mason Alston and Ian Haggerty, legislation, Paula Brumbelow for some zoning stuff she's been helping us with, Jonathan Goins, RCO coordinator, Peter Bernard, Upper North District planner, Aaron Holly, Lower Northeast planner, and Matt, don't kill me if I chop it up, Wysong, Central Northeast District planner. And I say it because, Ann, I don't have to call you as much as I would need to, because these are the people in the department who we call and work with on a regular basis, and I wanted them to know that we value and appreciate what they do. With that being said, I want to turn to a program that I'm extremely proud of. I know of Councilmember Squilla, you'll probably be hearing from him about it. So I want to get these questions on, and then I want to listen for answers. I've been unapologetic about my advocacy for home ownership along with neighborhood preservation. It doesn't mean that we don't value all of the services, financial supports that need to be provided for rental assistance. We need to do that. The president referenced that our efforts in the city, that program, it's been nationally recognized. We did a yeoman's job, but home ownership is what puts people on a path to self-sufficiency. And the most affordable house, Mr. President, I'm going to take your line here, is preserving the existing house that you currently live in and that you own. With that being said, tell us, if you will, the number of Philadelphians, new homeowners assisted by Philly First, how many we hope to help on an annual basis since you relaunched. I'm a fan of this, because this helps district council members, and you may have done it and I didn't see it. If you could forward to us the GIS of the breakdown by council districts, which districts have the highest, participation. It was the 9th for a while, Mr. President. Don't get upset.
I was going to say, I know why she's asking for that.
Don't get upset, okay? But I think Councilmember Sanchez might have me by now. how are you marketing those programs? And you've been successful. I was talking to the housing counselors when the president was talking about NACS. I said he took me right back to predatory lending, Stafford and Tasco's office, the importance of that housing counseling robust network that we have, and making sure that they were appropriately funded. So give us the facts, if you will, about Philly First Home. But I also want you to send to us in writing a breakdown by council districts of the neighborhoods getting assistance through our home repair programs. Now, for basic systems home repair, we know there are income eligibility guidelines. So you know my line, Mr. President, people make a nickel over, right? So that's when we started programs like Restore, Repair, Renew. But the participation in Restore, Repair, Renew, because it does go up to 120% of the AMI. I know we are adjusting the program now to allow people to access a higher dollar amount. 50K was the number I thought I heard, because it costs more to get the work done in your house, but it's easy to give away than it is to loan, to be self-sufficient, and, you know, to make sure that the program is sustainable. So for BSRP, adaptive mod, emergency heater repair assistance, and Restore, Repair, Renew, can you GIS by council district the people who benefited from those programs, so we can literally see where they are? And that's a handout, to be quite honest, that I want to give out to people, so that I can showcase all of the programs in the district where people are being served. So now I'll listen to your response for those first two questions. If I don't get a chance to get the third one in now, and I'll come back on the next round.
Yeah, so really quickly, so our first round of Philly First Home, we served over 2,700 new first-time home buyers. So that was an incredible success, put $24.5 million on the street within about a year. This time we have another 14.5 million. So we assume that we're going to be able to serve between 1,400 and 1,500 households with that those dollars. And you're exactly right, Councilwoman. The 9th District did a great job in that. As in terms of marketing, I'll just say, since we launched that program and then sort of announced it in the press and on our website, our phone is blowing up. I expect, you know, frankly, in a very short time to say, okay, we all that money's out there, right? In reference to the other information that requested about basic system repair, Restore, Repair, Renew, adaptive mod, and weather heater hotline, I believe that we can provide you the information. Dave Thomas, if that is not possible, please chime in, but I think that probably is possible for us to get that to you. And then, as you alluded to with Restore, Repair, Renew, you know, we're always working with your office to try to make sure that whatever issues we come up and help us get that money out on the street, we are open to that. And like you said, we just adjusted that program to go from 25,000 to 50,000, and we're doing some other things to try to make it easier for folks to access those dollars.
One of the things I wanted to add in with that program, and again, anytime we're talking about a self-sustaining program, so it's unlike the well runs dry and now we need more. We've designed it right so that it can be sustainable. But Mr. President, I thought about our conversation with the police department and even with HR and here in the city. You know, during that time, we were talking about how are we letting Philadelphians know that these jobs are available. And the police department had only spent $10,700 on marketing, and then expected, you know, to make the recruitment in a department, like, you know, make sure everyone knew. So I want to make an ask on today, and we talked about this even when we designed the program, to have a more robust marketing budget, and also that includes the housing counseling agencies, many of our churches, the door-to-door work that was done. And Mr. President, my mind, you know, I'm 50 this year, so things come in and out quickly. The group that went door to door, like doing the census work, they also helped us during the COVID, you know, during the pandemic when we were trying to, I can't remember the name.
I think it was Philly Counts.
Your Philly counts, Mr. President. That's it. So I would like to and obviously offline from here, really sit down with the office and come up with a robust a marketing tool that can include agencies like that, but along with our housing counseling agencies, and we can't expect them to do it for free. Right? If we want it to be included in the work that they do when they do the counseling. So I look forward to working with you all in the future. And thank you so much for everything that you've been doing.
Sure. We're always willing to work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
Thank you, Council President. Hello, and I have a few questions. The first one is about the land bank. So my question is, if the city has decided to, if they decide to pursue a strategy to pay off the certain U.S. bank liens and move those parcels into the land bank for eventual disposition to community members as well as affordable housing development, what kind of additional staffing would the land bank need? And do we have an idea of how much that would cost to hire those additional staff members?
I am going to defer to Angel Rodriguez, who I think is on here, who is our Vice President of Land Management, about the question about how much additional staffing may be needed if we got the U.S. bank lien property.
That would be an issue that we would have to deal with mostly on the legal side. Couple things. First, if the city had made that determination, one of the things we would need to do is put in place an agreement to exercise our priority bid at the sheriff's sale. And then we would probably need light estimate. I mean, I could come back with a much more detailed issue, but probably another attorney plus a couple of more clerks to process the acquisitions. So acquisitions and dispositions in terms of vetting applications to dispose of the land after we get it in. Acquisition's much more of a legal question. Disposition is much more of a staffing, clerk, project manager question. So depending on the volume that we're talking about, I could probably give you a better idea in terms of how many staff people we would have to ramp up to.
We're talking about 300 to 800 parcels.
Well, at the current complement I have, we are focused on dispositions, and we're going to do 1,000 this year. So I would say probably I would have to rough estimate like a 1 to 2 more project managers and 2 more clerks.
Okay. Thank you for giving me that number. My next question is about, the city approved and issued a record number of permits last year, largely ignited by the expiration of the 10-year property tax abatement. And L&I issued more than 900 new construction permits in December of 2021, when the department typically issues about 150 a month. So in total, by the end of 2021, more than 2,600 permits were issued compared to the approximately 1,600 that are typically approved. Do we have a sense on whether the new construction permits are being issued at the same rate in the earlier months of this year? And how many permits were issued like in January and February?
Yeah, so we would have to ask the Department, the L&I, Department of Licenses and Inspection, to get that data. That's, the Department of Planning and Development does not issue those permits, and we don't necessarily track permit issuance, but we can work with the Department of L&I to get that information.
But do you have a sense on what
I would
those
just say
numbers would
this,
look
I
like?
mean, sort of anecdotally, we have not seen any slowdown in the requests for projects that are coming, for example, through Civic Design Review. We still are seeing a large number of new projects coming in through that process. And as you're aware, the Civic Design Review is for larger scale projects. In addition, I think our volume with developers reaching out needing assistance through development services has also not decreased. And also our cases that ZBA, Zoning Board of Adjustment, our staff there is scheduling is for expedited hearings. I think they're scheduling now into August, and for non-expedited, I think they're in September or October. So in general, there still seems to be a very high level of development.
And that's what I thought. So how would administration address concerns about substandard development and dangerous work conditions at job site? Because this often takes place when we have so much development and is outpacing the ability for us to adequately enforce the building code violations and building codes in general.
Yeah, so again, all of that is overseen by L&I, and they do building inspection and code enforcement and violation enforcement and all of that. And so we can certainly get information from them. I believe there are some things that have been put into place to try to provide some additional notice and some additional safety requirements and those kinds of things. But again, we'd have to get more specific information from the Department of Licenses and Inspection.
But does your department, like the planning department, have a perspective on the development outpacing enforcement and how it impacts building and development in our city?
Yes, I think, and I don't mean to keep putting you off, but that is really the purview of the Department of License and Inspection. So we can sort of, planning, things come through as, legislation or projects to comment on, but planning is not required for any of the building enforcement. And we really typically don't take in, if a neighbor or somebody like that has a complaint about something that's happening on a development site, that goes into, that gets funneled through L&I. It doesn't really come to us.
Okay. Okay. And my last question, in the mayor's 2019 report on eviction response and prevention, called for the city to provide and promote new tools to landlords and tenants, such as a model lease. And there is a number of small cities that have developed the model rental leases, but Philadelphia could be the first big city to do so. Is the Department of Planning and Development willing to commit to working collaboratively with stakeholders to make a model lease for the city a reality?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if Melissa knows about this, but I do believe there's some type of effort along those lines underway.
Yes, we're in the process of doing that. Yep. So absolutely, we're committed.
So, have we explored any opportunities to incentivize the use of a model lease, such as included in packets of free information that the city otherwise provides?
And that's something we're looking at. Absolutely.
Yep. All right. I look forward to seeing your work on this because, in my office, we know that it's helpful to include models and samples for both landlords and tenants from our work around the Renters Access Act. And for that act, we listed a sample set of rental qualifications for landlords, a sample of rejection letters for landlords, and a sample of requests for reconsideration for tenants. And these tools were very helpful. So I look forward to seeing a model lease become available as well. And thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And to follow up on Councilwoman's question with respect to the enforcement side, and I know L&I is primarily responsible for that, but planning should take into account the capabilities of the enforcement side because they ultimately make a lot of decisions that could accelerate the pace of development way beyond our capacity to actually monitor and enforce on that particular side of the equation. So there is a connection, there is a nexus. Approving these extremely high density projects with planning and as it relates to that activity directly impacts L&I's ability with limited resources to do that. So there's a connection. So maybe they should at a minimum talk in terms of what they project. And then in the budget process, which we are now in, that we can project how many individuals should be hired or budgeted for on the enforcement side. So there's a nexus. And I understand it at the end of the game, but you approve it, you should be able to monitor and enforce any challenges associated with what you approved. All right. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gautier.
Thank you, Council President. Good afternoon, Ann. I wanted to start by thanking you and your staff for your partnership and for all that you do for the city. My first question is about the creation of a more nimble property acquisition and stabilization fund to support neighborhood-based developer acquisition of properties on the private market on a timely basis. Would we be able to, this budget cycle, carve out additional funding to support a short turnaround and more nimble property acquisition and stabilization fund? We think that this would help address the need to move more quickly in certain situations, such as in competing with outside speculators, buying up properties in changing markets and in rapidly gentrifying neighborhoods, or when a key site becomes available that could have great impact on a commercial corridor or residential area. In addition, sometimes our CDCs and other neighborhood developers need to stabilize properties while going through pre-development, so short-term funding access could also alleviate this issue as well. And we think that this could take the form of small catalytic grants, recoverable grants, or even zero interest loans, and that PIDC or LISC or the Merchants Fund would be well positioned to implement this type of program. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so that is something that we're looking at. Frankly, we're in the process of setting up a few different programs and new programs, but this is one on our list, is to figure out, particularly I would say we would like to prioritize affordable housing projects that may be coming up to their expiration period. So low-income housing tax credit projects that are reaching the end of their required affordability period, right? We would like to prioritize how to facilitate potentially the acquisition of those types of projects. But we're open to some of the other things that you mentioned. I know that, Commerce got some of this MPI money as well, and they're looking at, how small businesses may be able to actually acquire their business and things like that. So yes, we are definitely open to figuring that out, having the conversation. And I do believe also we've been having some preliminary conversations with LISC about their idea around this. They run, I can't remember frankly what it's called anymore, but they run sort of an affordable preservation think tank type of thing. And they've been, we kind of been brainstorming and shooting ideas back and forth. And this is something that's that's relatively near the top of the list that we're trying to get to. That would be some type of acquisition fund.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that you're already working on this and that you're focused on affordable housing. We would really like to see something like this on commercial corridors as well, if that's something that we could consider for FY23.
Yeah, I think we can work with you and work with Commerce and figure out what we're looking to do.
Thank you. In the consolidated plan, DHCD is allocating an additional $2 million to fund housing counseling services, which is what we've been advocating for along with the housing counseling agencies. And you all are doing this from the new money provided within the Housing Trust Fund. Does DHCD anticipate this being a 1-year or a multi-year appropriation in addition to the funds that housing counseling organizations receive from CDBG?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Melissa Long because she's going to be able to provide a much more detailed answer than I am. But
thank you.
Good afternoon. Yep, we were very excited to do that. Yep, and we also were able to flip out $2 million of CDBG that's very restrictive with $2 million of the housing trust funds to give counselors a little more flexibility. And again, I think, we're in constant contact through our many programs with the counseling agencies, and we'll do this on a year-to-year basis, but, anticipate as with the need and funding availability, that's something, we hope to be able to do.
Okay, so we would look to do this in future budget years as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Housing counseling agencies are also receiving funds through the CDBG CARES program. How long will that funding continue? And once those funds have been exhausted, will DHCD look to replace those funds? And where will you look?
Yep. Again, that wonderful resource was, we're very grateful for those CDBG CV funds that is funding the eviction diversion program. I believe about $1 million and change. It's going to the housing counseling agencies, and another almost $1.5 million to our nonprofit legal services organizations and Cora Good Shepherd. We have another full year and several months.
Okay.
So we have enough to moving some monies around. So we're good through next year. And again, we would look to, our other sources to ensure that that program continues.
Do we have a source in mind yet?
I think that's something we'll work on over the, next several months into the fiscal year.
Thank you. We also know that many of our counseling agencies are in need of capacity building right now to meet demand. As an example, one housing agency told us they've had 1,000 people register for home buyer classes in 1 week since we relaunched Philly First Home, which is amazing that we relaunched that program. But have we given any thought to using any leftover FY2022 appropriations or into a transfer ordinance to inject at least $1 million into the agency's current contract so that they can keep up with this demand?
Again, I think we have the new $2 million coming in, and I can say there are several members of the Housing Trust Fund Board and PACDC. I think the other challenge, to your point, capacity building, it's not like there's a long line of unemployed, ready to go housing counseling agencies. So I know that there's a group of agencies that meet on a regular basis and with PACDC and trying to do partnerships with community college and trying to build a pool of counselors as well.
Yeah, just in wrapping up that thought, I think people are grateful for the proposed $2 million, but that's going to take several months. And we wanted to know about, if you're receptive to looking at how we can get our agencies some money right now, given the increased demand. So I hope that's something that we can work on together.
Yeah, always open to looking at that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Council President. Thank you for your leadership with the MPI program, and Fadula and Melissa and your entire team. Thank you all so much for the work that we all have done together over these last several years, and even going back to last budget cycle and Melissa, when we started working together on the Tangled Title Fund Committee. I'm happy about the progress that's being made there. And so obviously, as you know, under Council President's leadership and our leadership team and colleagues, we have the MPI initiative. You know that $7.6 million of this funding is specifically to address tangled titles, which you know is an issue that I care deeply about. And so I wanted to quickly get on the record a bunch of questions, but I wanted to start around your plan for how you think the city should spend these additional funds, specifically the $7.6 million on top of what we typically do. And can you provide a breakdown of where you think these funds should be spent?
You're muted, Melissa.
Sorry, I had my mic off. I'm cognizant of that hot mic. I've been working a lot, and again, thank you for your support in this, and with Janae and Council President's Office and our legal services providers, and we have been putting together a pretty comprehensive plan and PowerPoint, and happy to get together and reconvene folks from council and the providers and go through of all the things that we have proposed. I do, through additional support to VIP, PLA, and CLS, I know they're looking to more than double the number of clients that they're able to assist, both in untangling title and also really increasing because I think equally also important, as we've discussed, estate planning. I think the exciting things that we continue to work on, again, this, we have the value of these existing community networks, the NACs and the housing counseling agencies and CDCs. And I just had a conversation with Janae on Monday, and we're going to bring together the legal services providers, and we're going to have a meeting. And Al Haj, who heads the NAC program, to talk about how we can really coordinate. And
you know what, Melissa? And
yep.
I apologize for cutting you off, because I really want to get all of these questions in.
Okay, so how about we schedule a meeting and I can get you that information? Yep.
That'd be great, because, and I wanted to get on the record, I've recommended 3 specific funding buckets for this allocation, particularly because it'll be stable, consistent funding over the next 4 years, but really a larger investment, obviously, in the legal service agencies to help clear more titles. We know they need additional opportunity to help more people, but also I think it's important to talk about a community grant program that could provide direct funding to the culturally competent community organizations that can do the education and the information that we need to get out into communities to help folks where they are, because I often talk about people just suffering in silence with this issue. It's very deep, and it takes a long time to resolve. The other part of that is also an increase in funding for the Tangled Title Fund, coupled with an expansion in the amount of funds available per client, and also an expansion of eligibility to 120% AMI. Because it's the city money, we would have more flexibility than the federal dollars or money that's sort of trickled down that is, restricted on, the type of clients we can help. But our Madam Majority Leader often talks about these individuals who, make a penny or a nickel above the guidelines for AMI, and they're not eligible for funding. Those are the folks that we are seeking to assist in this process, because the dollars are not restricted like the federal dollars from a city perspective. And so, direct funding for those community organizations will be crucial to this work, because a lot of individuals simply don't have a lawyer on retainer all the time, or someone that they could call. They find out because they go to sell their house or apply for a grant program or try to tap into equity into a house, and suddenly they discover they can't do any of that. So we have to partner with the community organizations who are run by our trusted leaders that have connections on the ground, and also with us and our legal services agencies, so that we can help them get that work done. And so if you could provide to us directly to Council President a written plan to create some level of a community grant program that will help with education and information, that would be helpful, and also including paying the organizations on time. The other part of that is I want to ensure that we provide a grant program that can go directly to individuals, even if it's a reimbursement program to help pay for lawyer fees, because the recent Pew report talked about it being, $9,000, $10,000 on average. That's an easy case to resolve a tangled title. We know the overwhelming number of properties with tangled titles. We know where they are across the city of Philadelphia. It's a racial equity issue. It's a low and moderate housing equity issue, and we need to stay on top of it. So for the record, quickly, can you tell me how much money is in the Tangled Title Fund currently? What's the cap per applicant, and who is currently eligible to access these funds? And can residents apply directly, or are they only eligible if they have support from a legal service agency?
Yes, and I don't want to give you inaccurate information, so I will check on that balance and get that information back to you. Historically, the fund for quality control, right, has been for the providers that are assisting clients, but I know there's been discussions about making it available, but we're still under discussion in that. And I do believe I'd have on a case-by-case basis, we have VIP and the partners have been able to assist some clients from 80 to 100. And I do believe the NPI funds are capped at 100% AMI. Yep.
Okay, well, thank you for that response because I'm not sure, and if you could tell me, are other programs, Restore, Repair, Renew, and Philly First Home, are they up to 100% AMI or 120 AMI?
So for this phase of Philly First Home, because it's funded with the NPI dollars, the cap is 100% AMI.
You said it's 100, so it's not 120 AMI?
Correct.
But
this,
so
but Restore, Repair, Renew is 120% because that's a different bond issue.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is what I'm trying to get to in this process. And I hear the bell, but I really want to get this on the record. Because it's city money, could we take it up to 120% of AMI? Because it's really to assist those individuals who cannot get assistance from the legal service organizations because they make too much, but they still can't afford to resolve a tangled title and pay for outside legal fees, but they can't go to CLS, a BIP, a PLA. And if we can't raise that income eligibility for this tangled title work we're seeking to do to 120% of AMI, what are some additional ways you suggest that we could utilize this funding to help more middle income Philadelphians who are seeking to preserve their generational wealth? Because that's what's happening. We have people losing houses all across the city of Philadelphia simply because they cannot afford $10,000 for lawyers' fees. They can't get into a grant program, which is why we've been working with revenue to try to look at the regs for loops so they can match UPA so that folks can get revenue programs. And that'll be even more important with what's happening and what's been proposed relative to the property assessments. But we're really seeking to help people maintain their properties in the city of Philadelphia. All these programs, Restore, Repair, Renew, I think it's one of the best programs we have ever had to help people maintain, because if you have a tangled title and you can't afford to take care of lawyer fees, you also can't afford those home repairs, but you can't get assistance from legal service. So what do? And then they lose the houses and they go up for sale in some mechanism, or somebody comes in and buys or purchases the property, they'll renovate the property and sell it for triple, quadruple the value. And yet you still have no place to go. And so, as our council president often talks about, the most affordable home we have is the one you currently live in and the one that's currently in your family. And we must help Philadelphians, particularly in this moment and where we are in our city, preserve. So if it's not at 120% AMI, can we get it there? And can you state for the record if you support raising the income eligibility for the Tangled Title Fund to up to 120% AMI? And if not, what additional ways do you suggest that we can help individuals in that middle income bracket? Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, I just want to say, let me answer that. So I just want to say, Councilwoman, we share your passion around Tangled Title. That's why we've been running a Tangled Title program for 30 plus years, right? And we are, and again, we cannot thank you enough for the partnership we have with you, because the first time in forever, we finally have some additional dollars to put into this. Currently, the MPI program agreement we have states 100% of median is the limit. We can certainly talk to bond counsel and city treasurer about, is there any ability to maneuver in there or not? If what we get back is not, we are certainly open to working to figure this out. I will say this, and we can also get you this information quickly, is I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but the 2022 income limits that were just released by HUD are significantly higher than what they were in 2021. So that 120% of median, or even 100% of median, is a pretty healthy number now, right? And I think if we, and again, we can also get you this, if we took whatever is at 100% a median right now, and unfortunately I don't have it right in front of me. I know that so if
and I have to say thank you, Secretary Marsha Fudge. Thank you, Fudge. Okay.
Right, yeah. So let me just say, if 80% of that right now is 84,300, we must say that 100% of median's got to be getting close to $100,000. So I'm just saying, and if we match that up with the population of Philadelphia, unfortunately, right, probably 99% of the population in Philadelphia makes $100,000 or less. So I think even with 100% of AMI at this new level, we are probably, able to serve 90+% of the population in Philadelphia. For those folks who pop up, who for whatever reason we can't serve, we are definitely committed to working with your office and council to figure out how we do that. And again, to your point, right? The largest cost in this is paying those attorneys' fees. And so while we are open to figuring out how do we increase capacity, we also know that, those attorneys that VIP oversees, the 1,700 plus attorneys that VIP oversees, most of them are either pro bono or taking a significant cut in their rate. And so we're able to take those precious dollars and make them go as far as possible, right? So we are open with how we do education, how do we do all these other things. But we also know with you, we want to make sure that even though we now have more money, we want it to serve as many people as possible. So yes, we are committed to working on all of these things with your office and with other council members to make sure that we have the strongest Tangle Title program possible.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that commitment. I needed to get that on the record. It is so important that we help as many Philadelphians as possible. And I'm so grateful to Council President and the leadership team for this allocation, because it'll enable us to quadruple the amount of people that we've been able to help and will be able to help over the next 4 years. And so we will continue to work with you all on this issue. I also just wanted to get on the record, Philly First Home, everybody's talking about it. Again, one of the best programs to help individuals with home ownership in the city of Philadelphia. That's the style of program we want to set up for the Tangle Title Fund for folks that need help with lawyer fees that may be, a little bit above that income guideline from the federal standpoint. And so I just wanted to get that on the record, okay? But it'll be the education and the information, support for the legal service community, and support for the community organizations that are culturally competent on the ground doing the work, knowing the individuals, and they'll be comfortable working with them. Thank you, Council President. I'll come back on the second round. Thank you so much. And thanks, Ann and Melissa. It's been wonderful to work with you. And I want to say for the record, because last year, the Tangle Title Fund, the composition of that committee was the exact opposite of the demographics of the clients that they represented. You have added an African-American female to that fund, and I do appreciate that work. So thank you very, very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Councilwoman Gilmore, you were talking and I was talking through you. I was in the amen corner. Thank you just so much for affirming the need of the people who are right. I don't even like to call them the people in the middle. They're like right in the crux. And from a policy perspective and appropriation perspective, we have pitted the have-nots against those who have just a little bit. If it's an either or, the investment. But when we look at the assessments that just came out, and I'm thinking about districts like the 9th Councilmatic District, who've been significant contributors to Philadelphia's tax base long before we saw any of the growth that we've been seeing. Our long-term owner occupants, they need to know that we have them in mind. So Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, again, thank you. And I appreciated the exchange just now between you and Ann. So those Philadelphians know that they're not being left out. They're not being left behind. We have them in mind as well. With that being said, and you heard Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, she invoked the name of former Ohio Congressman, now head Secretary of HUD, Marcia Fudge. We were really excited. After the feds issued their report, HUD also issued its report. While we wanted it to be a little bit stronger as it related to appraisal bias, for the very first time, we got some action from the federal government saying that there would be repercussions for firms and within the industry. We have an appraisal bias task force here working on releasing our report that we expect before council recesses for the summer. But one of the things that issue makes me think about in the draining of generational wealth, particularly in neighborhoods, Black neighborhoods where there have been high rates of home ownership. It's been the appraisal bias, but it's that mortgage foreclosure prevention. So I'm thinking about our residential tax and mortgage foreclosure prevention program. How many people participated in FY2022 so far? How many do we think we might help by the end of the year? And again, because the visual is so important, can you GIS it by council districts so that we can literally see where the highest participation in that program is and the neighborhoods that it's coming from, because that helps to inform our policy making.
Yeah, so to be honest, we did not serve a lot of people through the mortgage diversion program until recently because of the mortgage foreclosure moratorium. Right. But now that that's been lifted, we are definitely starting to see more activity through that program. So we will get you whatever numbers we can as recent as they are. I'll just be honest, I'm not sure we have a lot of like very recent data, but we can certainly probably do a look backward that will be pre-pandemic that would sort of show you what was going on in that program. And so while we lowered our performance measure for that in fiscal year 21 and 22, I do think in 23, the coming year, we boost that back up. And I think that number is 1,000. But we can get you some more detailed information on that. Again, there's going to be a gap because of the federal moratorium. And then we have seen an uptick, and we'll try to get you as much information as we can.
No, and I appreciate your even getting that on the record, because pre-pandemic we'll say, listen, this is when we didn't have any of those protections. It slows down 0 to none during the moratorium, and then we begin to see in what neighborhoods and where do those numbers rise very quickly. So even that information and the compare and contrast between the two times, that would be extremely helpful. Now, Ann, I want to turn to this is a difficult issue, and I bring it up all of the time. The last time I talked to the law department about it, and this was something I even talked about at the state level, insurance issues always come up, but one of the things that we do well in BSRP is that challenge of finding a reasonable and responsible, efficient, effective contractor to do this work, Ann and Dave, who is not going to gouge our seniors, people who are going to return their calls when they have questions about the work. And I really want to know, what do you foresee as any barriers to the city of Philadelphia developing a contractors list, right, of folks who are licensed, who are insured, who can do this very work? If you what is it? I think it's called Angie's List, or another kind of list, like those kind of lists. You'd be surprised how many people want to know, how can they find a good plumber, especially if they need one immediately, or somebody who can do concrete, or what do you see as the barriers of us being able to put together a list, particularly because we need people in the industry. We can work with the trades. We can work with our BSRP contractors. I would love to see Philadelphia do something like that. How do you think we could work together to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, right, I don't think that that's a problem right now exclusive to lower income homeowners. I think anybody, all of us that have been trying to get anything done, we're pulling our hair out. And even on basic system repair, I know, probably Dave wishes all of us would get off this call and go and become plumbing apprentices and get our plumbing license, because it's almost impossible to find a plumber. And I think that's something that we could work on. And again, I'm not going to talk about the legal issues with if there's liability, if the city says these are recommended contractors or whatever, and it's not getting to exactly what you're talking about, but I think in this effort to try to particularly get more qualified minority contractors, Dave's shop has started something called the Minority Developer Program. And so, Dave, I don't, if you're still on, if you can maybe jump on and just give a couple minutes about your efforts around that.
Yes, I'm still here. Good afternoon, Councilwoman.
Good afternoon.
I share your passion for trying to figure out the challenge that we face every day, and that challenge has only gotten greater through this pandemic. Quite honestly, because the cost of construction has just gone through the roof, and it affects the small man much more than it affects the larger contractor. My minority developer program, the impetus behind that was trying to identify, as we all know, that exist minority contractors. More importantly, I was looking at developers, but contractors, and I'm looking at the whole ecosystem to some degree, because I know that they exist. We just don't see many of them doing the work that we commission. And a lot of that has been education, not understanding our process. A lot of that has been the stigma of slow pay, dealing with government, and dealing with BSRP clientele has always been a challenge for some of our contractors. Looking at the RRR side, challenges that I foresee that I would love to sit down with you and try to figure out the fix to it. The biggest problem that I've heard in talking to the constituents as well as Clarify has been related to working with individual homeowners. So in other words, it may be easier if we had a system where there were some governmental, how should I say, I don't want to say governmental interference or play, but the issues that contractors have had is the trust factor of being paid for the work that they commission or do. Whether a person likes the work or not, and they don't get paid if they don't like the work. And we have the same challenge on BSRP, except, because I have a little bit more of a whip, I'm able to actually utilize a little bit more of our resources and our flexibility, if you will, and the flex that I have to get folks to fix their problems because they want to continue to participate in the program. Doesn't necessarily exist on RRR, but I do think that there are some synergies that we can probably figure out. I've been working with Clarify. We've been putting together a list, but I think we have to go a little further than that. So love to sit down with you after this.
I appreciate that, Dave. And one of the things that the council president noted when we were working on putting this program together, we were talking about whether or not there would be contractors, a certain pool of contractors that we would say, okay, you can get access to this funding if you use this pool or this group. But the president raised a really important issue during that time, that this is not like Philadelphia giving people money, which is why, as Ann mentioned during her testimony, if we came up with $100 million right now with no marketing for Philly First Home, and we're going to give up to 6% or $10,000 to people, that $100 million, we can get that out the door ASAP because we're giving money away. But Restore, Repair, Renew, the way the program is structured, while you can't beat the underwriting criteria, especially now because the rates are going up. It is still a loan that has to be paid back, which to me is what makes the program sustainable, because it's not just going out and we got to hope we get more dollars coming in. So why wouldn't they have the same flexibility of being able to choose who it is that they want? The only problem is, and I'm not just specifically referencing Restore, Repair, Renew. I'm talking about home repair in general. I'm talking about people in the program and out who call our office and say, because they trust us here. This is a space where they trust us. So, call up there to Sherelle's office. She's got to know some people who will be honorable and, they'll come to do the work. Some good contractors. That's what they would say for council, because they view us as a hub of information. I'm just trying to figure out how we could build that and work through and or around the liability issues that have sort of come up. So in one way or another, it may not be today or tomorrow, but we have a problem. We have people in need of the jobs who need the skill set. They could earn a good living, and Philadelphians who need the work done. And to me, I'm being an eternal optimist. That's a good problem to have. That's a good problem. People need the jobs. They need to learn the skill, and people who need the work done. We've got to figure out a way to marry those concepts. So
I agree.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the leeway being provided. Hopefully, we've planted some seeds and we can move forward towards some solutions on this issue in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And I believe Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson has additional questions.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Council President. Thank you. Thank you very much, Council President. Really quickly, I just wanted to get on the record and sort of going through your budget detail. You know, I would not be the chair of Council's Committee on the Environment if I did not bring this up. But on page 44 of your budget detail, I see funding was completely cut from the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society for a same-day work and pay program. Is that accurate?
So that program was cut. It's my understanding that money came through the new normal, and that funding is no longer available. So that was the cut. However, there is still the typical amount that we would get, I think, and I don't have that exactly in front of me, but I do think there's still $2 million in there to go to the land care program. So the same day pay program, is my understanding that money wasn't available anymore, but we do still have $2 million going to PHS for the land care program.
Okay, because I know we talked about this briefly earlier about the same day work and pay programs, but across city government. And so when I saw that, I wanted to know what that was and how we can restore the work that they were seeking to accomplish with the, old revenue that we were able to give them. So how much is that gap in total based on what you all had proposed for this year?
Yeah. So again, I think that was a cut of $2 million in the same day pay program.
So it was a cut of $2 million, but you still put $2 million forward.
Well, so let me just clarify, right?
Okay.
So typically we get $2 million a year for the land care program itself, right? Which is PHS maintaining lots, and they provide opportunities for returning citizens, for jobs and some other things. Then last year, I think it was just last year, due to the council's new normal program, we got an additional $2 million put into that budget for same day pay program. And it's my understanding from budget office that there isn't any new normal money or it wasn't allocated to us. And so that new normal same day pay $2 million got cut, but our standard $2 million going to PHS land care remains.
Understood. Okay, so we will definitely follow up regarding that program, which I think is very, very successful. And my last question, I see you there, CP.
I have to laugh too. It wouldn't be a budget hearing unless we talked about this.
I'm just saying.
It's called the caucus negotiation, Councilwoman.
Yes.
For this, right?
Yes. Had to get that on the record. And so my last question is relative to your capital planning and decarbonization. And I just wanted to know, how does this particular capital plan reflect action towards meeting our city's goal to be net zero by 2050? And how is planning in your office working with the energy office to identify opportunities for energy efficiency projects or other opportunities to address the mayor's carbon neutrality goals, particularly through this infrastructure package, because it could be opportunity for you all in that regard as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to defer to Eleanor to talk about the capital budget, but then really quickly with Energy Authority. In fact, we have a RFP that if it's not on the street, it's going out quickly in the 5th District. That sort of matches what we've talked about with getting land out for affordable units, but also is incorporating some energy guideline information that we got from the Energy Authority about how to make those units as energy efficient and as sustainable as possible. But Eleanor, you want to talk about the capital budget really quickly?
Good afternoon, everyone. Could you repeat your question about the capital budget, Councilwoman?
Sure. Good to see you, Eleanor, and thank you for all of your work. Just wanted to know how the capital plan reflects any action towards meeting our city's goal to be net zero by 2050, and then how you all are working with the Energy Office to identify opportunities for energy efficiency in any of the projects that are coming through. I mean, the announcements are being made, and we were all together, even on the home ownership piece, turn the key. And so I just want to make sure that we're able to get as much funding as possible for any energy efficiency parts of our projects.
Really good question. I would say that for the capital budget, we look at it in various layers, and trying to achieve net zero by 2050 hasn't been top of mind, but thank you for bringing it to our attention. We'll factor that in going forward. In terms of the energy efficiency, especially with capital projects in the city, the Planning Commission is assigned to review and ensure that our own projects meet certain criteria moving forward. And so that's one of our units within Planning Commission does actually keep an eye out and take a look at that.
Yeah, because that Councilmember Blondo Reynolds Brown did that bill previously, even for all the city projects around, LEED certification. We updated that to the next level. And so that's a part of the planning that has to happen from a city perspective. But the carbon neutrality goals are goals that have been set forth by Mayor Kinney. And so I tried to get on the record with a number of departments around your plans for capital projects on how you're sort of getting to that number, particularly as you're planning longer term projects, but also as we're, having this opportunity with the infrastructure package where we can marry federal funding to really help us get these projects done in an accelerated manner. It's just so much opportunity. So I wanted to get that on the record. So thank you for that response, and we'll continue to work with you all. Thank you, Ann, and to your team. Appreciate the work. All the constituent cases, I got to put that on the record. We've had many constituent cases with your office this year, and I wanted to say thank you. We're working on some currently together, so thank you. Thank you for the work around PHDC and trying to help all of our council clients that come through to our offices. The Philly First home buyer program, the Rent Assist program. It's been a little bit of everything, but I wanted to say thank you for your work together to help all of our constituents. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I don't believe there are any additional questions by members for these witnesses. That being the case, I want to thank you all very much for your testimony. We look forward to your responses in writing to be forwarded to us. And so we can move on, and we'll continue to do that great work for the citizens of the city of Philadelphia. This committee will stand in recess until Wednesday, May 11th at 10 a.m., at which time we will reconvene on Microsoft's team. Thank you all very much. We appreciate you.